For this example, we're going to look at a situation where we have uh, a couple of different categories to choose from. In this case, we're at a restaurant and we're ordering appetizers and entrees and a dessert. And we're going to pick just one thing from several options in each category. We want to figure out like how many different ways could we pick one of each of these three things. Um, and so to think about this, we're going to draw out a diagram. And what I'm going to think about is that to begin with, we know that there are three appetizers that we can choose from. And so, let's say I think to myself, okay, I could choose appetizer number one, I could choose appetizer number two, or I could choose appetizer number three, right? That's the first choice I need to make. And let's say that I decide to pick appetizer number one. So once I've made that choice, now I'm going to think about what entree do I want to choose. And I have four different entrees that I can select from. And so I can think about those as being entree number one, entree number two, entree number three, and entree number four, right? And I can choose any one of those four. So if I pick appetizer number one, I now have four ways that I could pick that first appetizer and then an entree. But that's also true if I pick entree number two, right? So if I um, decide instead of getting entree number one to get entree number two, or sorry, appetizer number two, I could choose entree number one, entree number two, entree number three, entree number four. And it's also true if I choose appetizer number three. I have the same choice of any four of those entrees. And so we can kind of see that now we've created a setup where, if we consider the three or appetizers that we have to choose from and the four entrees that we have to choose from, we've kind of got 12 different ways, 12 different combinations. Each of these little branches is a combination. So 12 different ways that we could choose an appetizer and an entree. So now we're going to add another level to that because that's not the only thing that we're choosing. We're also going to choose a dessert, and we have two different desserts that we can choose from. So let's call those dessert number one and dessert number two, right? And if I I order the first appetizer and the first entree, now I have two choices for that dessert. And that's going to be the same if I order the second entree or the first appetizer and the second entree, or if I get the first appetizer and the third entree, or the first appetizer and the fourth entree. And so just thinking about, these little pathways that I've created now, just in this one situation, now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different choices that I could make. And I also know, like I have all of those same choices for desserts. If in the second sort of situation where I get appetizer number two, and the same kind of thing is going to happen in the third situation when I have appetizer number three. And so I can see now I'm going to have a total, if I were to count up all of these little branches, I have, 8 choices here and 8 choices in the middle and 8 choices in the third situation, and 8 and 8 and 8 is 24. But there's kind of a faster way to get to that answer. But let's really quickly write down here that this would be 24 choices. Or really 24 ways of choosing is a way to think about this. But the quick rule that we can use is we're going to think about taking, really what we're doing here is we're ordering 3 appetizers. Make that a little darker. or we're picking from 3 appetizers and 4 entrees and 2 desserts. And we've talked about how the word and is a clue word for multiplication when we're talking about counting and probability. So in this case, we're going to take the number of choices or the number of options for each of these categories. We're going to multiply them all together, and 3 times 4 times 2 is another way of getting 24 different combinations or 24 different ways of choosing an appetizer, an entree, and a dessert. And so the key thing to take away from this kind of situation is this idea of when we're picking one thing from each category, when we have multiple choices in each category, we're going to multiply the number of choices together.